Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Extend. My name is Adam Ismail, as always, and today I'm joined... Well, who am I joined by?
Well, first of all, you have your regular co-host, Brendan Norrison, but we also have another member here today who could probably be considered a co-host at this point, but it's good to have you again, Jason.
Yup, it's always a pleasure to see you too. Yeah, you have your secondary co-host, Jason. Hi.
Yeah, and we had to have Jason on for this topic in particular, because this is something that you've been sort of, I don't want to say needling us to talk about, but you're just like, when are you going to do the all-important, jet ski water racing episode? And we finally...
Just slowly sliding the envelope under the time extend door. That's just me.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
It, guys.
And there are two games that we have not discussed, and one, of course, is your I think your favorite of the two, Jet Moto. And you really can't talk about Jet Moto without also talking about Wave Race, because it was like the yin to the PlayStation's yang, kind of, on the N64. So, after not really having any water sports like jet ski racing games, you got two of them back to back in quick succession, because that's just how the 90s was,
Yep. You had two bangers, and then you had Hydro Thunder. But this is
exactly
what we're talking about. We're talking about water skis. We're talking about jet skis today.
Absolutely. So, and it was in line with the whole 90s extreme sports vibe that we got games like this. We, of course, also always got our skateboarding games, and that's another genre that's kind of fell off the face of the planet, even though...
Or the weird subgenre of, skateboard racing games, Too Extreme.
Like Too Extreme.
Skitchin'.
Too Extreme, which I've never played. Skitchin', which I've heard about, but I've never even seen the box for that. The name just Skitchin' is such a... conveys such a vibe.
It really does.
But
yeah, that, whole weird, subgenre of, extreme sports games, that definitely went on for a while. But I feel like these two were two that kind of cemented it in there.
These were some of the best, and one of the funny things is that growing up playing both of them around the time they came out, and I didn't actually own either of them. My family didn't own these games, but we were frequently renting certain titles, and I feel like Jet Moto was one of them. And as a kid, Jet Moto seems cooler, off the bat, because it's futuristic, and you're not just on water, you're on all these different surfaces. But I think when you dig down, they're two, on the surface they might have seemed like kind of similar games because they're both kind of jet skis, but then once you actually play them, it's clear that they could not be more different. Jet Moto, obviously futuristic, their hovercrafts are not really jet skis, and you're really only spending at best half a lap on water. On some tracks you're never on water. And
exactly.
Wave Race is as realistic a jet ski simulation as you're going to get in 1996. So
if we're talking about 64, yeah. 64 was just let's make a really solid jet ski game.
Pretty much. Yeah, and I guess to kick things off and start talking about these games in detail. So the way that I was thinking it made sense to structure this discussion was just start with the one that came first. What I quickly learned was that in North America, at least, Jet Moto and Wave Race 64, their release dates were separated by 1 day, which adds to the competition, the rivalry between these two games in the marketplace. Technically, Jet Moto was the first. Well, everyone's used to the Sega versus Nintendo thing, but Sony versus Nintendo is a whole other subject.
That's a whole nother side tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so weird. I found out that they came out within a day, because I remember Jet Moto was very close to launch on the PlayStation. At least it was at least a couple months or a year after Twisted Metal.
I'll tell you, and I'll double check right now just to make sure I don't have it down wrong. We're gonna pay a visit to Wikipedia. But I do believe it actually came out quite a bit after the PlayStation did. Yeah, so Jet Moto 1 released October 31st, 96.
Okay.
The PlayStation released... so it's about a year after the system came out, a little bit over a year after the system came out. And then on November 1st, 1996, we get Wave Race 64 in the US. Now, Wave Race 64 actually came out in Japan a little bit more than a month earlier on September 27th. But Wave Race 64 was also the third N64 game to come out in the US. And I imagine, like, what you had, like, Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. And
No, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I think those were the first two. And then Wave Race... Super Mario 64, I think that's a Breath of the Wild situation. I think people can see themselves playing that game for a long time without really needing something else. But then out of anything that you could have had for a third game on that system, you get a jet ski game.
Sure. I mean, why not? Worked for the Game Boy. Game Boy had Wave Race.
Yeah. So
Both.
So, Brendan, I know, we've established many times on the show, you're not an N64, you didn't grow up with the N64, not faithful to that system necessarily, but I know you had a PlayStation, so did you play any Jet Moto?
So I haven't actually played much Jet Moto either. The thing is, though, it's one of those games where it was always on the kind of the video rental stores shelves. Like, I was always kind of about to get it, and then I'd probably pick up like Ridge Racer Type 4 or something again, and it never quite got around to it. But it's one of those ones as well where I've seen quite a bit of it just because it often pops up in racing game discussions for the PlayStation 1, and more for me in this conversation, I suppose, it will be understanding what makes it so good, because I can clearly see from the gameplay and stuff that it looks like an interesting game, but I'm not sure what it was. It never just made me kind of take that plunge, and it's probably just something as daft as when I was younger. I used to love racing games with cars in them, but like anything else, even motorbikes and stuff, I wasn't really as keen on, so that's probably why I never did get around to Jet Moto. And then in the case of Wave Race, I did actually have the Virtual Console version on the Wii. I picked that up for like the most stupid reason ever, where it was like I was reading a magazine and seeing that they had changed the billboards to advertise the Nintendo DS, and I just thought that was some weird, like, fucking time-bending shit that there's like Nintendo DS billboards and a Nintendo 64 game. So I have got very limited experience with Wave Race, but with Jet Moto I've still not actually played it, but I'll be looking forward to hear what you guys say.
Yeah. Now,
I feel that.
I grew up playing some Jet Moto 1 and 2. The two games are so similar, and we'll go into that later, but they're so similar that it's kind of hard to separate them.
Differentiate.
For the same reason that, like, Wipeout 2097 and the first Wipeout is just like 2097 made a lot of quality of life fixes that made that game unquestionably better than the first one, but it still looks a lot like the first one. It still has, like, a very similar vibe, very similar crafts, and the tracks are different, but it's pretty much it just feels like a patch on the first game. That's kind of the same thing with Jet Moto 2, but you get more content.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Jet Moto 3, it's like its own like side thing.
We're not gonna, as far as I'm concerned, Jet Moto 3 never happened.
Fair. The only one instance it happened is that it got Doritos as a sponsor. It's the only reason it happened.
That's true, and those Doritos crafts are actually kind of neat. But the whole Jet Moto
Keep going.
Sponsorship in-game advertising thing is a weird topic in and of itself. But
oh man.
Yeah, so these games, so the Jet Moto series, at least 1 and 2, were developed by a company called Single Track. They would not have that name for very long, but they were, a very important, very influential developer in the PlayStation's early days. This and Twisted Metal were their two franchises, and it's safe to say that they alongside the likes of Battle Arena Toshinden, maybe, and like Destruction Derby, and you could throw the first 2 Ridge Racers in there as well, I guess. They were one of the these were games that sold the system. Single track eventually, I think I want to say it was like probably like the late 90s, early 2000s. It was like a simultaneous shutdown, and also some of them went on to form Incognito, which would develop like Twisted Metal Black and a couple other games.
I want to say that was like 2000, 2001 when they switched over to like PS2 development.
Yeah,
like single track went along through the PlayStation era a little bit after Twisted Metal 1 and 2 and Jet Moto 1 and 2. Like they stuck around a little bit. They made this like hoverboard game and like a couple other Twisted Metal ripoffs, and then they switched to Incognito, and I want to say 2001, probably 2001, 99.
Yeah, so it was a combination of things. Basically, they, you're right in saying that. They shut down, Single Track shut down in 2000, but they were acquired, in the sense they were acquired by GT Interactive, which then became an Infogrames studio, and at the same time, some of them speared off and formed Incognito. The other game we're not talking about that was also part of their lineage in the early PlayStation days was Warhawk, which is a game that I've never played, but I've seen the box art for Warhawk like 8 billion times.
Neither have I. I've seen trailers and I've seen gameplay, and I've just never seen that game played.
Yeah,
it's there. It's no Jet Moto, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, Twisted Metal was definitely their core thing that everybody was playing. But what was that, Brendan?
No, I was going to say I've actually played Warhawk, so of all the games that's been brought up today, I actually did play quite a bit of Warhawk on the PlayStation 3, and the multiplayer especially was good fun. That's all I can really recall. I think it was during that time period where you were trying to kind of play anything that would justify the purchase. But I remember it being pretty kind of packed online as well, so it was pretty cool. I didn't know that it was in any way related to the Jet Moto, so I'm already learning something here.
Yeah, well, they made both Warhawks. They made the original one on the PlayStation, and they made the PS3 one as Incognito. So, but I didn't even realize Incognito isn't around anymore, and they haven't been around for some time. So, yeah. But, at this time, single track kind of rules the PlayStation. And with Jet Moto, I really do have to wonder how much of... I mean, they would have been aware of what was going on with Wave Race, obviously, but I do kind of wonder how much they were trying to come out with a game that would have been the PlayStation's version of Wave Race, like how much they were like really purposefully trying to come up with a competitor, because the story goes that like when they were originally starting work on Jet Moto, they wanted to make some kind of futuristic bike racing game, but what they determined, which was a pretty clever thing, is that they would be able to save a lot of system resources if they didn't have wheels to render. So just on the basis of that alone, they decided like, hey, let's make these just futuristic hovercrafts. And I am honestly in awe of the ambition of the first Jet Moto, because it's clear that with this game they really bit off more than they could chew. Because the next several entries, or the next 2 revisions of this design were scaled back in a lot of interesting ways. The first game, you had 20 riders on one track, which for the PlayStation is just absurd to think about. I mean, I've definitely played more Jet Moto 2 than Jet Moto 1, and Jet Moto 2, as we'll talk about, is a little bit different in this regard. So I don't really remember what it's like to be, riding alongside 19 competitors, but with the action in this game and with like the suicide courses, obviously, where you're kind of going down a shared path in both directions. You kind of go around the tethering pole sort of at either end, and you ride back down into oncoming traffic. 20 riders doing that? That's
Yeah,
No.
exactly. My bad to cough up a lung, but yeah. It's crazy. Like, Jet Moto 1's a wild experience when you think about it, going from, like, any normal jet ski or, like, dirt bike game to, like, this, like, 20 hover bikes at once. You have a little side grapple that pulls you around corners. Like, you're jumping and skitching around everywhere. Like, it's a crazy experience. It really is.
Yeah. What differentiates it from other games that would have kind of been in this genre is that, as we said, they're hovercrafts. You're not only riding on water. So, for example, the first track, you're on kind of like a beach. You actually start on a road, and then you just like jettison out the side of a building, and now you're in the ocean. There's like parts of like broken down highway and stuff, and obviously like sandbars and dunes in the ocean that you can, or in the water that you can kind of launch yourself off of. But you start on asphalt, you end up on water, sometimes you're on sand, and that's basically like the crux of Jet Moto, is that this is not just jet skiing, it's you're on every kind of surface type. In addition to that, you do have to worry about, or one of the core game design elements, as you were saying, Jason, is that grapple. So you'll see these poles at particularly tight corners on these tracks, and if you press, I think it's a circle button, you will form like an electrical tether with that pole to help you get around the corner at a faster speed than you would be able to if you were just cornering normally. As a kid, I didn't understand this at all. So I would just like press a button, and then you'd see the electrical energy or whatever, and I'd just be like, that looks cool. I didn't know what it was for.
You'd see like the cool thing, and it makes like the cool bomb noise, and then you call it a day.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
It's a lot of mechanisms for a game like this, you know? You also couldn't use you had a limit on how much tether you could use, right? There's a bar in the speedometer, so you couldn't expend all of it, or else you would be in bad shape for the next corner. It does recharge, but yeah, you did have to kind of be strategic about it.
Also, your boosts too, because you only had 4 boosts, and you had to limit them per lap.
Right. So yeah,
every lap you would get. I'm sorry to cut you off, Adam. That's my bad. I heard you talking.
No, I was just gonna say, like, on the surface, it's a lot more simple than it ends up being.
Yeah, like it is pretty simple, but it's also pretty technical at the same time. How I figured it out in that how you have 4 boosts per lap, it recharges them every lap. So the key to it is like finding areas in the course where you boost off of and like setting up certain jumps. And there's that little bit of technicality that plays into it. Also among like avoiding 30 riders and jumping over broken highways.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of apocalyptic, sort of, I guess maybe even Motorstorm Apocalypse vibes to the track design in this game, because it's, you know, there's one that's like in San Francisco after like an earthquake. At least that's a Jet Moto 2 course, I think, actually.
No, that's one, yeah, but there's a couple.
Yeah.
There's like a busted up ski resort in the middle of the snow, like the landslide, like there's a landslide and snow everywhere. There's the swamps, there's a couple different types of courses. The thing about Jet Moto I liked is just the different environments. How they have like, here's this environment, here's like 3 to 4 courses based on this environment. That was always cool.
They are all very different for sure. The suicide tracks though, those are the ones that, like, when I think of Jet Moto, those come to mind. Suicide Swamp is, you know, the one I remember playing a lot, because I feel like that was maybe in a demo as well that I had back in the day, like a PlayStation Underground demo or something.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. There was also Jet Moto 2, there was The Shaft, which I think is one of the most evil course designs ever.
Agreed.
You end up in a lot of cases with these games, it's enough to worry about going back in the air direction when riders are flying at you, and if you get hit, that, you know, you respawn, and that can be very time consuming. Sometimes it will place you in the absolute worst spot. It does this a lot in The Shaft, where if you fall off your bike and you respawn, it will put you right before a jump, which you will not have enough speed to clear. So that is like the worst. Like, and that's what I'm saying. When like this game was so ambitious, you combined just like the variation in the track designs, these like the suicide courses, the cliffs that you could just fall off of, 20 riders on one track, and like the tethering, the boost, the speed of it. Like Jet Moto to me is a game that is so hard to be good at, and like if I put maybe like 30 to 40 minutes into it, I can kind of remember the skills and get a handle on things, but it's not a game I was ever able to just jump into. And the net result of all of these decisions is that it doesn't run particularly smoothly. So, you know, in the first game, you're probably struggling to hit like 20 frames a second because of all the crap that is going on in front of you. And they would improve that with the championship edition of Jet Moto 2, which is a whole other thing. But it really just seems like it's if they curbed certain things, if they kind of, you know, maybe like, hey, let's do 8 riders or something like that. Like they could have found like a happy medium if they tuned some of these elements and made the games really hard. But instead, they just like throw it all at you and
just go for it all at once. That seems to be like Jet Moto plan. Because Jet Moto went like, besides the first game, like they went all in with the sequels. There was going to be a sequel on PS2. There was going to be a sequel on. There was going to be 2 sequels on the PlayStation after 3. Like I feel like the story with that series is just we're going to go balls deep, make everything. But it is a lot to get a handle on your first time playing. It really is. Jet Moto is like a game you sit there and you get good at after a while. After like years even.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, from here, like, I guess I don't want to spend a ton of time on it just because we haven't all played it. Brendan, you haven't had much experience with Jet Moto, but Jason, I know, like, you're a big fan of the franchise and these, you know, at least the first 2 games, so, like, what is it about Jet Moto that you miss? Or
it's just it's a lot of things. Like I don't know, it's the art style for one. Like Jet Moto just has a kick-ass art style. Like everything's drawn by this 90s comic book artist, and there's all these crazy wacky characters. Like what's his name? The guy with the Mega Man helmet, Technician. Like there's this oh, I'm connected to a computer, but I train on Jet Moto 24/7. And there's like another guy who's like always fixing bikes, and like everybody has their own little story to it. It's just like interesting how it all comes together. The music's another strong point for me. It shares a lot of music with Twisted Metal 1 and 2. Like it has that same kind of hard rock style.
Does it? I mean, it shares actual songs, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like full-on songs,
couple.
which is just funny in and of itself.
Fun fact: Suicide Swamp in Twisted Metal 2 is actually one of the snow tracks in Jet Moto 1.
I love that.
And same thing with the LA the Los Angeles level in Twisted Metal 2. That's another one of the snow tracks in Jet Moto.
I love it when it's like egregious, like just taking things like that. I mean, it's fine, you know, it's one studio making these 2 games at launch for a PlayStation. They have a lot to do, so I totally understand sharing content between them. It helps that it was good content, because the soundtrack in this game is, well, while Wave Race's soundtrack is definitely more to like my taste, Jet Moto has this sort of hard rock action movie vibe to it that it just hits really well. It's perfect for the game. I love the title music to Jet Moto 2 when you're in the menus. Is like, I hear that and I just feel a wave of nostalgia. I'm in my my parents' basement and I'm a kid, and it's like 1997 or 98 all over again, and on like this like pinkish red carpet, sitting cross-legged in front of this massive Toshiba CRT, gonna play some Jet Moto 2.
The advertising in this game is so fucking apparent. Like I've been watching some gameplay videos while we're talking, and Jesus, they didn't spare any expense there. There's like 7 different types of Nestle chocolate being advertised around the track. You've got Mountain Dew in here. Then the kind of manufacturers of jet skis and stuff as well. It's pretty interesting to see, just given the kind of setting of the game itself. There seems to be a lot of branding associated with it.
It was a really prominent part of the game's design. This was a time before, in-game advertising was really a thing, and I think it's like the first case that I can think of in my history of playing games where it was obvious. Like you had the Mountain Dew bikes, you had the Butterfinger bikes, you have Chef Boyardee advertising, which is pretty funny. But I was reading that apparently one of the game's producers, quote, fought like hell to make sure that Chef Boyardee did not sponsor a bike and was only trackside advertising, which I find really, really funny.
I find that very weird.
Yeah, I get it. It's one of those like kind of funny brands that if you're trying to cultivate, I mean, the reason why it works for Jet Moto is because in the 90s, like, Mountain Dew was seen as edgy, right? Butterfinger maybe less so, but Butterfinger at least had like the Simpsons sponsorship going on. They had the Simpsons ad campaign, so they were kind of like they were like sort of the Gen X edgy, and it makes sense. And I don't know. I mean, as a kid, you always you see those brands and you want to ride those bikes. I mean, I remember I always went towards the Mountain Dew one, the big dude who rode the Mountain Dew bike. That was like my thing.
So it looks like the EU version of the game still had these ads, despite the fact you can't get a Butterfinger over here. And I don't even know if Mountain Dew was actually available in the UK when this game came out. I don't think it was. So it's pretty interesting.
Gave me the amazing idea to check the PAL versions of the game, because I actually have PAL versions.
Yeah. I'm just watching a gameplay video now, and it's all still here. The advertising, baby roofs, everything that you would not even be able to go and buy in the shop if you wanted to.
Well, it's funny. It's a fact I like to bring up, but Jet Moto in Europe wasn't Jet Moto. It was just called a Jet Rider.
Jet
Rider. They just straight up changed the name. Yeah,
there was some licensing thing that I think prevented them from using Jet Moto over there. Yeah.
But I was just curious to check the manual and see if it even has the license for like Mountain Dew or any of that. It
I didn't
offers
even
you a
think
jet
of that.
ski trip. You could win a jet ski holiday package, according to Jet Moto.
That is really funny. I mean, Nestle is like a global brand, so I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have like, for PAL regions, you have maybe a Cadbury bike instead of a
the Dairy Crunch is available here, and that's on the advertising boards. I don't know if there's a bike associated with that, but there's a Nestle Crunch bar here as well. So I suppose they went 1 for 9 or however many advertisements.
Well, Crunch is everywhere in this game. Like,
yeah.
Nestle Crunch, almost every billboard on the side of a track. It's crazy.
I never thought about much when I was a kid, or up until now, but when I was young, like, Nestle Crunch was my favorite candy. It was like my favorite chocolate bar. And this game probably had something to do with that, now that I think about it.
I feel that. Nestle Crunch or a Bunch of Crunch. Bunch of Crunch was always my go-to. Get the little box.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's just... It's a very weird game, but there's nothing else like it, and I think that really works to Jet Moto's advantage. I mean, still to this day, if you want this sort of utterly bizarre, crazy fast, like, too fast for its own good experience where you feel like you're never in control, no game's going to give you that in quite this way as Jet Moto. And with Jet Moto 2, they made a couple of critical changes. They reduced the number of riders to 10 to lessen the load on the system in a race. The problem is that another thing that they did to also push the PlayStation a little bit less to maybe improve some performance was that they kind of killed the AI for the competitors. So what they did instead was basically record gameplay and then bake that into what the competitors, what your rivals on track would do. So they kind of always follow the same lines, which isn't that big a deal back in the day. I mean, yeah, it's not great design, but like when you consider this was like, you know, the mid 90s 32-bit system, it makes sense. The problem is that the skill of the recording of the footage that they captured is like very, very good. Like, I guess they say that they had a game tester who was also a sponsored snowboarder running each track multiple times, and then the AI would kind of default to that line, and it was just so fast that it makes the game a lot more difficult than it really should be.
Now, see, you're finding Jet Moto information that I didn't know, because I've never heard of that they used a snowboarder to check out the tracks, or check out the AI. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is actually from, it's archived on, like, it's like an Internet Archive blog. It's from 2007. One of the developers just, like, kind of goes deep into all of these aspects of the game design. Yeah, how they had AI in the first game that they got rid of in the second game and just replaced with these like expert level runs. The physics being completely different for the player's bike versus the competitor's bike. So oftentimes, like, there were situations where you'd get knocked off your bike, but like the other riders wouldn't. All of these things making the game feel, you know, making the game harder and feel a little bit less fair. But you know, arcade racing game in 1997. What do you expect?
Yeah, really. What are you gonna do for an old PlayStation game that like came out at launch?
The original plan apparently was that when you'd be knocked off your bike, you didn't get to respawn. I can't imagine playing Wave Race or playing Jet Moto that way. I think it would just make the game impossible. Considering
how many times you get knocked off your bike, no, yeah. Like it would be like Road Rash. You'd have to restart, go back to the menu every time you'd lose a race.
Yeah.
Not make for a fun time. I always thought it was weird how Jet Moto had like rally scoring as an option. The cool thing I always found about Jet Moto was the custom circuit option, and you could make like your own layout of courses and just run like your own specific championship.
Oh, right. So you're not making your own tracks. You're you're organizing them in order. But it also has rally scoring. Like besides like normal like position based, it has like time based, and I thought that was kind of cool. That's something you don't see too often in an older game like that. Yeah. To have it scored by time. Yeah, it's neat. There was also a PC version of this game which I wasn't aware of until like last year. They ported it to PC.
Yup. The PC port's not bad. I like it. I've played it before. They ported over Jet Moto and Twisted Metal 2 around the same time.
Yeah. Like a year later.
Just for that. Yeah, like a year or two. I guess just for that effect of like, oh, we could have PlayStation games on computers now. I really don't know.
I mean, Sega used to do that too, obviously. There were a bunch of games on the Saturn, like Daytona USA, CCE, and Sega Rally that got ported to PC, and those PC versions actually run pretty fine. Panzer Dragoon even, and I think it supported that like NVIDIA graphics card, the NV1, that was basically like a Saturn but for your PC, which is a whole weird lazy game review thing that I've like been trying to unpack.
I love that you've been hardware. More and more sold on LGR. I love it.
They're the best. That guy is awesome. Yeah.
Like I watched a while back his video on like the big Need for Speed like box set he got from China, and it's all like pirated versions of Need for Speed 1 up to like Carbon. It was an interesting lot.
One to watch for later. So the last thing that I will end the Jet Moto part of the discussion with, at least my contribution to it, is I find the whole Championship Edition, Jet Moto 2 Championship Edition thing really interesting. So basically, Jet Moto 2 came out about a year after the first game. It was like I think exactly a year after the first game. It was October 31st, 97. Had much of the same content. It did have new tracks, but also had the 10 tracks from Jet Moto 1. And eventually, when they wanted to do a greatest hits version of the game, they decided that what they would rather do is come out with Championship Edition, which is kind of like Jet Moto 2 Plus in a way. Basically, they pared the number of riders down even further for this version of the game from 10 to 4. So now you're talking about a wave race-like experience where you've only got 3 other rivals on track. So we've gone from 20 when this game first came out. Now we're at 4. But the benefit to that is that it would let it run at 30 frames per second. So, like, if you're, more competitive, I don't think like speed running or competitive Jet Moto was really a thing back in the day, but I guess if you wanted to really test your skills and have, like, the smoothest possible experience, you'd play Championship Edition.
There's, like, one guy that speed runs Jet Moto, and maybe, like, 3 time trial videos of me playing Jet Moto 2.
Nice. Good company.
I just had to crack. Yeah, exactly. Good company to be in. We got 2 people running Jet Moto. Yeah, the championship thing was always interesting. I actually printed out that box art. There's a set of box art out there where they actually labeled it Champion Edition and such.
So here's what ended up happening. Here's the other half of the story.
Here's the kicker.
So they submitted this to Sony for the greatest hits version of the game, and then Sony said, you can't do that. The greatest hits version of a given PlayStation title has to be exactly the same as the original game. So they were, the single track was annoyed at this. One of the lead developers, Brian Wicklem, explained this in the blog, and Brian says that he submitted Championship Edition. It was rejected. So he burned a copy of the original game because Sony had lost the master and sent that in to be made as the greatest hits version. Sony then fucked up and copied and mass-produced the original Championship Edition version that Sony did not want to produce and made that the greatest hits game. So in a weird way, it ends up being that the version that the team originally wanted to put out there, Championship Edition, which was rejected by Sony, actually ends up becoming the greatest hits version of the game.
Oh, jeez.
And although the box art is exactly the same with the greatest hits as the original Jet Moto 2, when you start the greatest hits version of Jet Moto 2, it does say Jet Moto 2 Championship Edition.
Yep.
It's very strange. There, as Jason, as you were saying,
the mystery has been solved.
There's like other box art that never saw the light of day, but you can find it's like awfully low resolution version of it you can find online and like print that out. I guess if you really wanted to have the full experience. It's weird.
See, I always thought it was like a disc swapping snafu. Like they accidentally sent them Champion Edition instead of sending them the Master.
No, they sent them Championship Edition first. Sony said that's not going to work. So then they burned a copy of the original non-Championship Edition. And Sony said, okay, good. But they still accidentally produced the version of the game they didn't want to release. So it was Sony's fuck up entirely on their own. And it's fun.
And that's why we don't have Jet Moto anymore.
We got 2 versions of the game. So, yeah.
Good deal.
That's Jet Moto. I think, we're already like 40 minutes into this, so we should probably just move on to Wave Race.
Just play Jet Moto. Just play 2. If you gotta play 1, play 2.
Wave Race 64 comes out a day later in North America.
So how does our GameStop shopping adventure go? So I obviously bought Jet Moto. You got to buy Wave Race.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't own either of them. Brendan evidently didn't own either of them either, although you got the virtual console version, so...
Yep. Got there in the end.
Exactly.
Were you, like, always like, hey, I, wanted to check this game out and just never got around to it, or...?
I think in that era with the Wii, like, it was just really cool to be able to download games full stop. So it was always a case of buying Wii points and just buying stuff, and then the Nintendo 64 stuff was always ludicrously expensive because, Nintendo. So when it came to trying to pick something up, I knew that I didn't like Mario Kart 64 at all because I'd played that quite a bit. And then there was Wave Race and Zelda, and I'm not a huge Zelda fan either. And I was like, you know what? I'll try Wave Race. That's really how I ended up with it.
You're going to make enemies saying that, that you don't like Mario Kart 64.
I know. I that's a topic for another day, man. But honestly, hold my hands up. I don't know why people pretend that's a good game.
Well, I'll tell you what a good game is. Wave Race 64. Wave Race 64 is a very, very good game. Developed by the one and only Nintendo EAD, of course, a legendary studio we never get to talk about because they have ever only made 2 kinds of racing games. Produced by the great Shigeru Miyamoto himself, and the main developer on this game was a man by the name of Shinya Takahashi. I'm sure the Nintendo nerds listening to this can rattle off all of the amazing work he's done, and I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure he's had a very prolific and important career. So, because it's Nintendo, there's a lot of good history about this game. And I was able to find the quote, and basically, the genesis of Wave Race kind of goes back to Nintendo, having N64 Project Reality built on this Silicon Graphics, derived chipset, being able to do all these interesting things with polygons that were never possible before, and not even possible on the PS1 or the Saturn. And they were just familiarizing themselves with the 3D tech. Takahashi...
Water graphic, the way of the future.
Yeah, exactly. Takahashi says that they were basically just messing around with water physics, and Shigeru Miyamoto apparently became aware of this and was impressed and said, like, hey, you got to do something with this. Like, it's really cool. Whatever this is, make a game. So they had the Wave Race franchise kind of staying dormant because they had that Game Boy game that I don't think anyone's ever played, but it does exist.
Hey, hi, how you doing?
You've played it?
I'm like the only one. I'm probably like the only one, but I played it. It's not bad. It's like a top-down jet ski game. That's all it is.
Yeah. So
that music is a bop, though. It's got really good music, I'll say that much.
There's a lot of good music on the Game Boy, that's for sure. And then from there, like, Shinya Takahashi's team was responsible for making something with water physics, and there is where you get Wave Race. If you look at the early demos and betas of this game, it was going to be something way different. And this to me is one of the coolest examples of, like, secret hidden game development things that, like, back in the day I wasn't aware of, but, like, now that I've done the research and I'm older and I see it, it's just really interesting. Wave Race 64 in its original incarnation was basically Hydro Thunder. You have speedboats that transform, and they would have to transform to get through certain aspects of the track. There's a couple clips on YouTube you can see from, like, their Show Shinkai exhibition, where they're showing a demo of this game, and you see one of the crafts, like, kind of contract to get through, like, a tight space. There were, like, sections that where you're going through tubes, almost like F-Zero. It was going to be something completely different, and then ultimately, Miyamoto felt that they needed to create a game that was a little bit more grounded in reality, for the simple reason that there were a lot of futuristic racing games at the time, which makes complete sense. I guess what they wouldn't have expected is that Sony would be working on a jet ski game of their own at the exact same time. So,
like literally one day before.
Yeah, it would come out one day before. And apparently, it was Rare's Tim Stamper who suggested that they use jet skis instead of speedboats. So, really weird history with this game, but it all it all turned out amazingly. And there's that famous statistic that like the water physics in the Wave Race they take up like 70% of the Nintendo 64's processing power just to do the water alone.
Wow.
Yeah. It really is a technical tour de force. I highly recommend everyone listening to this goes and checks out John from Digital Foundry, who was of course on a couple episodes ago. He did a series of videos, I don't think it was super recent, but for DF Retro, where it was just kind of going through the history of water physics in games. And one of the ones he, of course, touches on is Wave Race. And he's able to kind of turn off certain like polygonal meshes and things like that, so you can actually see how the game renders water. And what's really interesting is that like the waves, the movement, the ripples, everything is really only like I don't know, like a 50 by 50 foot kind of square in like that your rider is in, that your jet ski is in, and the entire world outside that zone actually is not rendering like any water information or physics. So the game is able to create this illusion where it looks like there are like waves in the distance that aren't actually there, and that's pretty cool.
It's dope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wave 64, like I've always had fun with, but I've never knew like the graphic stuff behind it. Like that's pretty awesome. Going through the graphic fidelity like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of tech in there for a launch Nintendo 64 game.
Yeah, because it seems like it's beyond the system's capabilities, and it is really pretty. And the way that they can do courses in that game, like Drake Lake, that are totally calm, where you just see the reflection of the water. And they can do like Marine Fortress that is like, crashing waves, like the sea is angry that day, those that kind of vibe. It can do it both, and the physics. Brendan, I think I said this to you on a previous episode, but like the Sega Rally of water physics is Wave Race 64.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. It
just feels so good to this day. And man, like I never played the sequel, really at all, but and I really should I should do something about that one of these days. But damn, this game just handles so well.
This is where on my side of the Wave Race like spectrum. You should definitely play the sequel. I've had a lot of fun with that game. What is it? Blue Storm, I think it's called.
Blue Storm.
But I've had that one from like the GameCube back in the day to like now. I've always been playing that game. That's kind of how I feel about this Wave Race as opposed to 64. GameCube one was dope, but 64 is amazing. 64 definitely is a really good jet ski 64 game.
Well, I mean, I'm right there with you. If you're talking about like 1080, for example, everyone always talks about how much better 1080 was than Avalanche, but I actually had a lot more fun with Avalanche than I had with the first game. So, yeah.
Definitely recommend Blue Storm. Not 64 is good though. 64's got a lot of stuff. It has that replay value in it. How it plays. It just makes you want to keep coming back.
It is incredibly annoying though in certain ways. So like my beef forever with Wave Race 64 is that the way the championships are designed is honestly evil. You have to qualify above a certain position to progress to the next round of the championship, but there is also championship scoring. So you could be in a situation where it's like, I have the lead, I don't need to finish higher than third to win the championship, but the game says I have to finish first. And then you couple in also like there's like a timer in these races where like you might fail the finish or something like that, or like the whole buoy system where you have to you have to go the left buoys and the right buoys to build
buoys.
power. Yeah. And it makes the game very difficult, and it's just very annoying when it's like, I have the lead in the championship. You're making me finish first, and I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm just like, the AI gets really tough in this game, and you end up losing even though you're leading the series. Like, you have to, you have to retire from the championship even though you're leading the series because you finished third instead of second. It's just, it's so dumb. It's like, this game, I remember I really got into it actually on the Virtual Console as well. That was when I really sort of revisited it and did so and really tried to be good at the game. And there were so many times I just wanted to throw that stupid classic controller at the screen because this game can be so frustratingly difficult sometimes.
Definitely can.
The thing about Wave Race as well, like, it's actually available on the Wii U's Virtual Console too, so it's like, it's only one generation back from the Switch in terms of availability of the game. It would be cool if we could get a port on the Switch, but the Virtual Console stuff just seems to not be on Nintendo's radar anymore.
I mean, the problem is it is on their radar very much if you look at the SNES and the NES Online
Yeah,
stuff.
true.
But they have no interest in doing that for the N64. So yeah, until that happens, which I have to imagine they'll do it one day. They're just not really interested in doing it right now.
Yeah, I can't imagine they wouldn't put 64 on the Switch for like forever.
Look,
I mean, that console's already 4 years old at this point, so it's possible that... I mean, it's Nintendo, the decisions they make at times, it's very hard to predict, so who knows.
They locked, they locked Super Mario 64 back into the Nintendo Vault, so we know they can do it, it's just a matter of whether or not they want to.
Wave Race Collection. There is a solid Nintendo.
Yeah.
The other thing about Wave Race that I have to shout out is the soundtrack. This game is such a good soundtrack.
64 definitely. 64's got an amazing soundtrack.
Composed by Kazumi Totaka, who composed a lot of Nintendo games. His Totaka song that appears in Link's Awakening and Animal Crossing and a bunch of different games does not appear in this one, which is kind of interesting. But it is a very, very good soundtrack. And what's the name? I need to find the name of the particular song that I love, and I will definitely put it in the episode. But it's the one that plays at like the night course. Twilight City, I think, is the name. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah.
I just can't. I just get that title theme music stuck in my head all the time. That one's a good one. You just start up. It's like Jet Moto 2. You just start up Wave Race 64. You're just instantly back to nostalgia because of how hype music got.
This game has a really like calming aesthetic to it. I mean, in that way, it's definitely like the polar opposite of Jet Moto, where there's like that kind of twinkling sort of music that like prefaces every single race. The announcer's voice is like very chill.
Okay.
Yeah. And I love like the music over the character select. The rider select is great. Just the sound effects in this game are fantastic. Sound design is not something that I think really anybody considers when you talk about the N64, just because its audio hardware was kind of trash, but they really did a good job at Wave Race.
Yeah, like those are good engine notes. It's not like like the usual high-pitched engine note you would get out of a jet ski game or something like that.
You get different tunes if you win a race versus if you come second, third, or fourth, and one of the things I'm remembering right now is did either of you guys ever unlock the dolphin or like ride the dolphin or whatever?
I don't think I ever did. I didn't even know you could unlock the dolphin.
It is one of those, like, I mean, I was going to say Luigi in Super Mario 64, which is impossible in the first game, but like it's kind of that level of stupid hard to get. Like it's something that I suspect like, maybe like 2% of Wave Race 64 players have done, because it requires you to do a certain trick, button combination, and a bunch of things in like the free ride mode where you're doing stunts, and then you can, I think, ride the dolphin or something. I don't exactly remember, but it's stupid complicated, and it's one of those things that annoyed me a lot as a kid because it's like, how am I supposed to do this? Why isn't there just a cheat code that lets me ride the dolphin?
Why can't I just Game Shark this? Like, come on, Nintendo.
Exactly.
What are you doing?
Exactly. I think it was riding a
Yeah.
dolphin. Maybe it was like something else. I know you race the dolphin when you start that mode. It's kind of going alongside you. Oh yeah, sure enough, I found the video where you're riding a dolphin. So there you go. If you've ridden a dolphin in Wave Race 64, be sure to comment or let us know that you've done that. I'm watching it now, and it's a little bit more natural than riding the horse driving the horse in Daytona USA.
Just a triangular horse that clippity-clops.
Yeah. And makes metal crashing noises when you hit a wall. And
Yeah, I was about to say
Yeah.
metal crashing noises are like actual tire screeches, even though it's a horse.
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
miss the era of ridiculous bullshit like that.
It's funny too because you're still racing the other dolphin, so it's like you're riding one dolphin and then you're racing a dolphin that is unmanned, and I have to wonder if that causes some confusion between the dolphins.
Just a little bit. It has to.
Probably.
It has. Yep.
So that's why I got on Wave Race. I just enjoy this game so much. It
It's
is,
a good one.
you know, I go back and forth on what my favorite N64 racing game is. There's a lot of factors that tie into it. I think if we're going to talk about favorite racing game and we're allowing things that aren't cars, it's Wave Race 64. Just on the basis of the physics. This game just feels so good.
Yeah, physics are absolutely phenomenal. From what I recall playing it, even experiencing it for the first time on the Virtual Console, I didn't feel as if it had aged all, like in terms of a negative way of playing it. It was just such a good experience even then.
Yeah. And Jason, I mean, like, I feel like your love of Jet Moto is like, Wave Race is probably almost like too easy for you, right? Like you need that kind of like metal energy.
A little bit.
Isn't really here in Wave Race.
It's weird. Trying not to like cough because of the sinuses, but fucking, I really like between Jet Moto and Wave Race. Like Wave Race is fun. I just feel like it's a different pace. Like I feel like Jet Moto, it's
Totally.
like you're trying to get the lines, and you're trying to like aim yourself for the right jumps, and you're like trying to get stunts so you can get boost because there's a stunt mode because you can get boost from it. And in Wave Race, it's just like, oh, you're just relaxedly like riding around jet skis, just having a good time, riding dolphins. You know, just everybody's having a good time. Jet Moto's just like motocross. It's all over. We're all racing.
Yeah.
It's a weird like parallel when you think about it.
Yeah.
I kind of like that we got to sit here and talk about our favorite non-car games. I'm here for it.
It's rare that we're talking about racing games that don't involve cars. So that's
Right?
that's definitely something that these two games that will probably never happen again, and nothing like them will ever be made again because no one wants to make them. I'm surprised that we don't have, you know, you have your Formula Fusions and Ballistic NGs and stuff like that to recreate like Wipeout in modern times. I'm surprised nobody has made like a spiritual successor to a Jet Moto or a Wave Race.
Exactly. Or even like a really fast, like good bike game. Like I think we're missing out on bike games a little bit.
Yeah,
Because I
because
feel like we got MotoGP by the same team that's been doing it for the past 6 years. I forget who does the MotoGP games, but
I
you
think
guys know what I'm talking about.
I don't know if it's still Milestone. I mean, they were
Yeah, I
doing
think it's Milestone.
they're doing Ride, and they also have that TT Isle of Man game, and all their stuff is fine. But it's also like those are full on simulations, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we're missing like a good just like a motor racer, like a motor racer, a wave racer, a jet moto, as we're talking about.
Manx CT.
Yup, Manx TT's another one. Oh, Manx TT too. Oh man, that would be great.
Yeah. So this is it's been pretty efficient, pretty compact episode. Any closing thoughts?
Mini?
Time extend mini? I mean, not really. It's only like 10 minutes shorter than normal time extend. Any
It's
closing
only 2 hours.
thoughts?
Well, play both games. Jet Moto's good, so is Wave Race. If anything, I say listen to the soundtrack in Jet Moto before you get into the game first. I feel like half of the sell on Jet Moto is like that quality soundtrack. Same with Wave Race. I feel like both could be listened to outside of the game and still be good.
Wave Race is a soundtrack that I'll put on to, just if I'm working or something like that, and you pick me up in the middle of the day, I need something like bright and cheery, it'll be Wave Race.
Yeah, strong choice.
All right. Well, listen, thank you, Jason, for being on, for talking about the games with us. Good time.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Of course.
Yep.
And yeah, play those games. That's really all I have to say. Just play those games.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to play Jet Moto, of course, myself. So that's directed at me. I've written it down. It'll
Brendan,
get played.
you be the first. Just don't play Jet Moto 3.
I'll set the trend. I've literally.
I
written
have
down a piece
PAL
of paper,
copies. I
play
got
Jet
you.
Moto. Or Jet Rider, I should say.
Yeah. That was one of like the craziest collecting things I've ever done, I think, was just get like every Jet Moto in every region. I'm pretty sure I have them all. The only thing I'm missing is the PC port. I have everything else.
Assuming there's a way you could even play that.
Yeah, exactly. Assuming you could even play the PC
I don't know
port
if you
on
have
hardware.
I don't know if you have like a vintage PC that would be suitable for that, but yeah, go watch lazy game reviews and try and find out how you can build a PC that's optimized to play Jet Moto.
Exactly. Just optimize it for Jet Moto and Twisted Metal 2, and that's it.
That's better than a actual gaming PC today. You know, all my PC ever needs to do is play Scud Race and Jet Moto, and I'm good.
You're right.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and you'll hear from us again soon.
Thanks for listening, guys.